So I think a big issue that I've experienced when stepping into the world of hybrid training, and something that I hear a lot of people speak about, especially my clients before they come on board with me, is striking up this balance and trying to find this balance between running and lifting, and kind of this crossover effect that people seem to suffer with of if they're doing some of their longer or harder runs, then they can't push as much in their lifting. And then when they have big sessions in the gym, they find it hard to then go out and do some of their runs. And it's something that I'm going to talk about in this video, and it's something that I've called the interference effect. So basically how these two worlds of hybrid training that probably don't mix very well, and what people on either world will tell you if you're going to do long distance running or that's your big goal, don't focus so much on the gym, and vice versa. But that's the golden pot at the end of the rainbow, with hybrid training, is trying to find a balance between the two. So that's why I think what I'm about to talk about here, and finding a balance and making sure that that line between the two worlds isn't as noisy, and this interference effect isn't as noisy, and you're able to, yeah, you got to prioritize one sometimes if that's your big goal, but somewhere where you can find a balance. So that's what I'm going to go into. So if we jump straight into the screen and what I've called the interference effect. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to handle this interference effect and balance running and lifting, and hopefully do it without completely burning out on either end. So not completely tanking in your running, and not completely being exhausted and not being able to recover within your lifting sessions. And then hopefully again do it without completely neglecting one discipline for another. And just a bit quick side note of what I've just said before is you will always be prioritizing one aspect over the other, and that's completely normal. Just because you're getting into hybrid training and you want to get the best of both worlds, it doesn't mean that you won't have certain goals. You won't have like a race that you're going for, or you want to get stronger, for example. So one of them may take a bit of a front seat and one may take a bit of a passenger seat, which is completely fine. But in this video, you'll find out how to blur some of that interference and hopefully get a better balance. So what is this interference effect that I've been talking about? And in simple terms, it's basically how much are you burning out on either end of this hybrid stick. So there's going to be a crossover, and we're trying to make the crossover as quiet as I possibly can, like I said before, but also not burn out on either side. So when you run, how much does it take away from your lifting, and vice versa? And that's the kind of line we tread across, and that's the line that I want you to be aware of and find a better balance with. So that gap between the two disciplines is this interference effect, and is the main thing that we have to try and manage when it comes to hybrid training. If you don't, your running will make you weaker. So you'll put all your eggs in the basket of running and become weaker, not look like you go to the gym, become like a wet lettuce basically. Or you put all your eggs in the basket of your strength and your gym work, and you become a lot slower, you become heavier, you become lethargic, you're not able to push in your harder sessions, or you just become too heavy for your longer runs because you can't spend a lot of time on your feet. So, like I said, I'm going to show you how to do this without taking away from those hybrid training principles of being the best of both worlds. So, before we do that, we first have to identify what your main mission is and what your side mission is. So, I'm a big gamer, and if you play games like GTA, for example, you will have a main mission which will be all in part of your storyline, and then you will have a side mission, which is something that won't affect your big thing but plays a role in it. And we want to try and do this without spinning all your plates and trying to do everything. Because like I've just said here, if you try to do everything, you end up with nothing. If you try and spin all these plates in one go, get good at running and lifting and your cardio and your eggs and your skill work and your high rock sessions, If you try and do all them in one go, you will end up getting nothing. So we need to identify, first of all, what is your main mission, and then what is the side mission that hopefully complements that main one. So the main mission and how to identify it. Well, we first have to identify what end of the spectrum is your main mission on. Is it more sitting on the side of getting better with your running and your cardio, or is it sitting more on the side of getting better with your strength and building muscle? So, like I said, is it a cardio goal? Is it a strength goal? Or if you're doing something like a Hyrox, is it a skill acquisition goal? Do you have to get better at certain skills, like a war ball, or get better on the eggs? Do you have to get better at a certain skill because that's the goal you have? You have to find out where you sit on the spectrum, first of all. Now, you can live with the interference effect in the main mission. That's where you want, or that's where, if you're going to have some sort of crossover, you want it to come from your main mission, i.e., if you're focusing on running a half marathon, for example, and that is your main mission for this part of your life, then yeah, 80% of your training may consist of running different types of runs, different intensity of runs, different distances of runs. So your strength may take a back seat or be in the passenger seat for a while, and your legs may be sore afterwards. Your energy may be lower after these big sessions, obviously. Therefore, it may interfere with some of your lower body strength workouts, for example. So you may find that your runs are your hard sessions, and then your gym work becomes some of your easier sessions, which obviously is not ideal if your goal is to add muscle. You can't really train that far away from failure and make sessions easy in the gym if you want to add muscle. So that's where this interference effect may come in. But we can kind of live with that if that's your main mission for that goal. Now, like I've just said, obviously this isn't ideal. Obviously, if you are getting into this world, it's because you want to be stronger, you want to be fitter, but you want to look like you go to the gym as well. So obviously it's not ideal to, if your goal is to run a half marathon, to spend all your time running, or 80% of your training week running, and only 20% in the gym, and then being easier sessions, because you want your side mission to complement your main mission. So there is a bit of a trade-off here that you have to learn and you have to deal with. Then you can use your side mission, like I've just said, to balance the scale. So if you have a hard session, which is your main goal, i.e. a tempo run, an interval run, a long run, you want to balance the scales out by, when you go to the gym, you want that to be an easier session. So almost like a traffic light system. If you think you're going, your running sessions are like red line sessions. So these are red on your traffic light system. These are really hard, tough sessions. You want your gym session or your side mission to be a green, almost, to kind of complement and balance these scales out. Obviously, like I said, if you also want to look like you go to the gym and add muscle, then again, you have to find a balance and you have to prioritize which is more important. But in this instance, we're going to say that your main goal is to run a half marathon. So you just want to keep yourself ticking over with your strength while you're prepping for your race. Now, I put a bit of a caveat and a warning here. Make sure that side mission doesn't interfere with your main one. So when you go into the gym, make sure that that side mission stays a side mission. So make sure that it does feel like a green. Make sure that you're not pushing that close to failure. Make sure that your programming is done in a way that you can recover for your main goal. Like I said before, you want your main mission to be where some of your interference comes in, and you don't want that at all if you can from your side mission. So here's some things that I would consider for those side missions to make sure that it goes hand in hand with whatever your main goal is. Make sure that it complements your main mission. So that might mean that some of your strength sessions, especially if you have one very big goal, in this instance is a half marathon, make sure your other sessions, so your side sessions, complement that. So maybe more recovery work, maybe more mobility work, maybe more stuff that isn't going close to failure but will help you with For example, single leg exercises to help you with your running. You want it to kind of complement whatever your main mission is. Make sure that it doesn't take away from your main mission. So you don't want to go into the gym, batter yourself on legs, and you have a long run the next day, but it's taking you 3 days to recover from that. So make sure that it doesn't take away from your main mission, and also make sure that it doesn't require a lot of mental and physical energy. So you don't want to have to psych yourself up every time you go in to do your side mission, because you already have to do that for 80% of your week. So you want this to kind of be something that ticks you over, something that you can maybe go and be social with, or go with your friends, or just again something that will actually help you with your main mission. Now, please don't think that you can do everything at this time. Please don't think that you can do everything at the same time. Sorry. Better people than you have tried and they've failed. Better people than you have tried to run a half marathon and do a Hyrox and add muscle and lose body fat. There's people who've probably tried to do that, and I guarantee you they would have had to sit down and prioritize what phase is the most important thing. And you have to work and see what end of the spectrum you're on, like I said earlier, and pick what your main goal is, because the good thing with hybrid training is you always have a challenge that is relatively close to the one you've just finished. So you can do a Hyrox, for example, accrue all of this skill, have all of this capacity work that you've done, potentially not add any muscle in that space of time, but then you finish a Hyrox and you can carry some of those principles into this phase now where you're building muscle, and you can kind of have like a cleaner crossover and have less interference. But you have to identify what is the main goal and what is the side goal. And that's why I'm saying you can't do everything at the same time, and there's people who have tried. So to stop this, I use this bullseye system. So in the bang center here, you've got your main mission. So in this instance was your half marathon. Just outside there, you have your training load. So for this instance, it's 80% running and 20% of it will be gym work. The trade-off here, though, so the second to last one on the outside, your trade-off here is you may lose some strength, you may lose some size in terms of muscle. You may become, yes, leaner because of the expenditure, but you may now not look like you go to the gym as much as you did because your main goal is a half marathon. So the trade-off is you will become lighter, you become fitter, you become leaner, which will help you with your running and your main goal. But if you also want to look like you go to the gym and have muscle and add muscle, that's the trade-off, unfortunately, that you may have to endure in this time. And then once you're done, you can just go back to either being in this phase where you're just waiting and ready for your next challenge, and then you can kind of be a bit more flexible. Or your next goal may be, right, I want to spend the next 6 months adding muscle, and maybe my running takes a bit of a backseat, which is completely fine. And that's the positives of hybrid training. And then lastly, on the outside of this is your side mission, and you're lifting to try and keep hold of this muscle. So you're not lifting to add muscle, you're lifting to basically give your body an excuse to keep what you have. Hopefully that's the goal. And through all of this, you have a mental side to juggle and manage. So thinking that the side missions are not as important, thinking side missions are not important or are null sessions is also a negative thing. So I don't want you to think that these side missions now are something that don't really matter, like you're going to the gym and you're just going through the motions. Yes, they're important, but you don't want them to take away from whatever your main goal is. You also don't want to get het up about how much stronger you used to be or how much muscle you used to have. Because yeah, you can get that back, and you can spend, after this prep, you can then say, right, I want to spend the next 6 months adding muscle, and you can get that back. But you have to juggle this expectation you've got of yourself of what you used to look like, because you now have a new goal. Now, last thing I want you to remember here is you can't remove this interference effect completely. All you can do is reduce the noise. And what I've told you there is how to prioritize certain things, how to work out your main mission and your side mission, and how to work out how to identify and manage each one, and the mental side of things. because unfortunately you cannot remove this interference. And if you want a little bit more help with this, if you want a little bit more information about this bullseye effect that I've just spoken about and the system that I use with my clients, then just comment the word formula below and I will send you some more information over to you. And that is it for this video. Hopefully it helped. If you did enjoy it, like, comment, anything that you didn't get, write it below. I reply personally to all the messages below, and I'll see you on the next one.